fight back. And so, so I got my staff to go say, okay, what's the deal with this? They're saying all this stuff, whatever. So I'm reading it, and I'm like, okay, they want to die on the hill of forcing sexuality and gender ideology in elementary school? You've got to be kidding me. There must be something more to this. But that's really what it was. They were something that there. And so, so I started fighting back publicly about it because honestly, you needed to set the record straight. And if you believe, and it's your position, that these young kids should be sexualized in that manner, you're wrong, but you should have to stand by that publicly. You shouldn't be able to skirt the issue. You shouldn't be able to obfuscate. You should have to do that. You shouldn't be able to hide behind a slogan. You should have to do that, and you should have to stand by. But here's the thing, and one of the reasons they go to these corporations is because they know that they can't stand by that. They know parents in the state of Florida will reject that position. So they cannot run for office saying that they're going to do that because we have elderly population. A lot of the elderly, they don't know what the heck any of this is. They're like, this is crazy. So it's not popular. It's not something that people want. So I think they understand that. So what they figure to do is, if we can get a big corporation to do basically the heavy lifting, maybe we subcontract our leftism to Disney, and then they will come and pressure elected officials. And you know what? It was not a dumb strategy because there are Republican elected officials who cave to big corporations time and time again. And so that's why they did it. And so they do. And so, they get Disney involved in this. And I told them, I said, you're nuts to get involved in this. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, parents with kids, that's your number one audience. Why would you And I don't think they wanted to. I think that they realized that it was kind of a hazardous thing. But, you had a lot of people, ginning it up and everything. So they decided to come out against it, which honestly is fine. I mean, I'm not, people can take their positions, but a lot of people thought, once Disney came out against it, that somehow that was going to kill the bill because Disney's just too powerful, in the state of Florida. Well, they bet wrong on that one. They're doing the narratives, and we've seen this in corporate America before. I mean, remember when Georgia did their voting law in 2021, you had all these big companies, virtue signaling, Delta, Coca-Cola, Major League Baseball, the Ultra game, this is like an attack on democracy. That's what they were saying. They just did Georgia's primary under these new rules, and you had a massive increase in turnout. And so those corporations were following a narrative. They were not following the facts, and they were really helping to distort the truth rather than stand for the truth. So we've seen that before, and Disney was playing that playbook. So, as soon as they did that, I said, fine, but you know what? I've got to go out as a leader and make sure people understand that they do not run the state of Florida. We run the state of Florida. We're not going to have our leadership subcontracted out to a corporation with close ties to the CCP that's based in Burbank, California. That's not going to happen on my watch. And so we made it very clear, here we weren't going to back down, and we knew that was something that was very important. And so honestly, at that point, I thought it was kind of over. I really did. So then the legislature sends me the bill a week or two later, so we signed the bill. And I knew the left would have their spasm or whatever, the media, but I honestly didn't think the companies were going to say anything again. But Disney puts out this statement saying, it is our mission to repeal parents' rights and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the state of Florida. This is our process. This does not even concern you. For you to be getting involved in that, first of all, I don't think that's consistent with the fiduciary duty that you owe to your shareholders. And the shareholders have taken it in the wallet since all this happened. They've lost massive market cap. But I'm just thinking, okay, that's very aggressive. And again, it's a free country. You can do that. But wait a minute. Okay, that's escalating it against us, right? And then they had these videos that were leaked with these Disney people saying, it's their agenda to inject sexuality in programming for these very young kids. Look, I have a 5, a 4, and a 2-year-old, so maybe I'm a little bit more sensitive about this, but I think parents in this country should be able to have their kids go to school, watch cartoons, just be kids, without having an agenda shoved down their throat. And so, I was not happy to see that. I thought it was not something that a family-friendly company would do. I thought those values were not aligned with where the state of Florida is in terms of parents and children. But it is a free country. You can say these things, but they do not have a right to force us to subsidize their woke activism. And the fact of the matter is they had gotten more subsidies from this state going back to the 1960s than any corporation in the history of the state of Florida. They have their own government. They're exempt from many laws, and they've gotten massive, massive tax breaks. And so my view was, okay, say what you want, but I am not going to have our state's laws put this one company on a pedestal and give them special treatment. Those days are over. And so... Just 6 months ago, no one would have thought it would ever be possible to do. And so we went ahead and, we had the legislature in for the redistricting. We added this, and, we're now in a situation where Disney is not going to have its own government. They are going to live under the same laws as everybody else, and they are going to pay their fair share of taxes. So it's fine. And look, all I'm doing is trying to defend parents. I'm trying to stand for good education. I think the extent the state of Florida continues to succeed on keeping that line between indoctrination and education firm, our kids are going to benefit. Our schools are going to perform better. All these places in these other states where it's just all about the ideology, they're going to do worse. So this is really, really important for kids, and that's why we did it. But I also think just the reality is Americans are sick of some of these companies and their stupid activism. And they wanted somebody to stand up. They wanted somebody to stand up and say, no. We're not going to let you distort our political process here in the state of Florida. So I think it's had good reverberations around the country. I don't think you've seen these companies be as aggressive as on some of these issues. And here's the thing: it's an issue for self-government. It's one thing to advance things in the political arena, but when they can't get things done through the ballot box, to use corporate power to do it and to impose basically a leftist agenda through corporate America, you've got to be concerned about that, and you got to realize that that's something that we have to fight back against. And so that's what we did, and I think the state's better off for it. And I know that in terms of fairness and the rule of law, is much better off for it for what we did. We also, and so that kind of got most of the headlines. But one of the bills that we did was very important, was really looking at things like critical race theory and other types of ideologies, not just in classrooms, but in corporate workplaces. And so we did a bill called the Stop Wrongs Against Our Kids and Employees Act, the Stop Woke Act. And what it says is, no imposition of things like critical race. And, the media will try to distort this. They'll say, oh, well, that's only taught in law school. We're not saying there's a course in 5th grade or 8th grade or whatever. Of course not. But the principles and the way you're thinking about stuff, if you take a 6-year-old kid and you say because you're one color, you're an oppressor, that is wrong. That is not how you treat people. If you teach, which CRT does, that values like achievement and merit and hard work are really codes for white supremacy, right, that is wrong, and that has no place in our schools. And so you never hear the left actually talk about what we're actually concerned with. They will do straw men to say they don't want people to learn about civil rights or abolitionists. Actually, in Florida, all that is required to be taught by statute, and it should be taught, and it will be taught accurately and fairly, but that's not really what, and actually there was one, someone did a mailer, a left-wing group, saying, Florida, they're trying to erase, all these historical figures. They have like Washington and all this stuff. Like, wait a minute, you're the one trying to take Washington down, not me. I would be fine. If they did nothing but study Washington's character and life, we could do a lot worse in this country. So you have that, and it's really important. And what they do is they'll try to distort history to advance an ideological agenda in the present day. So there was a thing that the New York Times did called the 1619 Project, and they say we're trying to reimagine American history, and they're basically trying to distort. Well, they came under fire even from left-wing historians, even from socialists were attacking them because they said the American Revolution was fought because of slavery. And that's just fundamentally a lie. You want to know why it was fought? Read the pamphlets that were done during that time. Look at the committees of correspondence. Look at what they did in independence. All that stuff is public record. It's been written about, all that stuff. So to try to act like Paul Revere and all these people were really concerned, it's just wrong. But what they're trying to do, they're trying to delegitimize the foundations of this country. They want people to believe that our institutions were founded, that they were rotten, and that these are not things that are really worth fighting for, and our founding principles, really aren't things that are worth fighting for. And it's interesting because they really are aligned historically, like we're aligned with Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass about the country's principles really being the guiding light that has led other people throughout wind struggles across the board. Stephen Douglas, when he was debating Lincoln, he said, no, none of that's true. Declaration of Independence doesn't mean what it says. Country was basically founded, and he was doing the CRT, what they view America as. So it's very interesting how you do it. So, we believe in a Lincoln and Frederick Douglass version of the founding of the country in American history, but there is an agenda at play, and so we're just making sure that we're doing it right. Also, in these corporations, they want to subject these the employees to these things where they're being scapegoated based on their skin color. And that's just wrong to do. You should not have to be subjected to sitting through that. So we provided protections for that. Now, we're getting sued on it. We're in front of a liberal judge. He's going to rule against us, but we'll win eventually. We'll get it done, and we'll make sure we're on. But at the end of the day, we should not be spending tax dollars or using our energy to teach our kids to hate our country or to hate each other based on how they look. That's wrong. And as important as it is to say, okay, we don't want divisive ideology in the classroom, we don't want things like that, it's also important to say, well, what are you for? And so what we've done since I've been governor is we've launched the largest civics initiative anywhere in the country, because people need to know. Our kids need to have a good foundation to understand the principles that this country was founded upon. They need to understand why so many people have been willing to fight and die in defense of these American ideals. And they need to understand, what it means to be an American. And I think this has been a lost art over the last generation. I think there's probably a lot of factors to a lot of things going on in society, but I think we would be a little less divided if we all were singing off the same sheet of music about what it means to be an American and understood the principles in the same way. That has seemed to be something that's fallen out of favor. So what we said is, no, we have a responsibility here. No matter what these kids are doing, some will go immediately to work, some will go to state college, some will go to university, some will go business, some will go medicine. They'll do a whole bunch of things. The one common theme to all those, they will all be called upon to exercise the duties of being an American citizen. And if we're just graduating a bunch of listless vessels that don't really have a sense of what the country means, then we're not doing our duty to ensure that the best days of this country are in front of us, but we're also not doing justice to the people that have come before us, that have fought and sacrificed because they thought the country was something that was worth saving. So we have a responsibility to do it, and we've done it in a number of ways. You know, we just started doing for seniors, having them take an exam just like the immigrants have to take when they become citizens of the United States. So they need to know the basics. You know, we've got really good standards through the Department of Education. We launched a civics and debate initiative a couple years ago, and we now have, I think this year it'll be 60 of the 67 school districts will be a part of the civics and debate initiative. And in Orlando, we're going to be hosting the national civics and debate this fall. And we're really the leader on civics and debate, which is important. And it's teaching kids, you know, when you go through civics and debate, they will give you a topic and then they will tell you which side you have to argue. So you may be arguing a side you personally don't necessarily agree with, but it causes you to think and think of issues from other perspectives, and it sharpens your ability to think logically, clearly, and to reason properly. You know, sometimes you go to these like very left-wing universities, everyone repeats the same stuff. Those students don't get the type of critical thinking that they need because the assumptions are never challenged. And so we're challenging assumptions and making sure that we're doing that. And then what we also have done is said it's very important that the teachers have the tools they need to teach civics and history properly. So we launched, we're calling it a civics boot camp, but it's a training program, and the teachers go through it. They get a $3,000 bonus, but you're really looking at true history. You're looking at stuff from the perspective of the founding generation, how those principles inform the creation of the Constitution, and all these other things. You know, some of the media wasn't happy about it because it slams the door to using that history for leftist indoctrination, and that's, you know, the way it should be. So we're doing that, and I think it's going to make a big, big difference. And so no one has done more, and we're going to continue to do more. But, you know, part of the things I think that we've seen over the last couple years is, yes, you can have what we're doing at the state, and we've done good policy, we've done good budgets, we've done good things for teachers, we've done good things for workforce, we've done a lot of good stuff. But the state is not going to be able to do all this stuff on its own and get everything right. It's really the local communities that need to be leading the way when it comes to their school districts. So we have, I have this year made it an effort to help promising candidates for school board across the state of Florida. And if you look at the way this has gone over the last couple years, in Florida, in the Constitution, these are, you know, nonpartisan races, right? So the voters don't necessarily, there's not a label, doesn't, so you got, and you will have kind of left-wing interests will get behind a candidate. They'll kind of package them a certain way. Mm-hmm. They get in, and then all they do is bow to the union or do different left-wing things. So this will be conservative counties. You know, we'll have left of center school boards. And how does that happen? Yeah. And so, look, I get there's some places that are very left of center. They're going to elect people that maybe reflect that. Not that I agree with those decisions, but you understand. But what I can't understand is how you could have a 65-35 Republican county and then have a school board that's fighting tooth and nail to mask kids against their will, fighting tooth and nail for some of the bad curriculum. How does that make any sense? So what we're looking to do is really help candidates who are walking the walk, who have strong values, who are going to be there for parents and put the students first, and just shine a little light on that, and just help particularly some of our voters who come up to me and ask me these questions about who should do. So we've done a lot of endorsements lately. I think we've done 20 or so, 25 maybe. Is there anyone here I've endorsed for school board? Where is she? Oh, Allie, yes. So she's running. Let me tell you, that school board needs some work. So if you're in Hillsborough, she's the one to be able to support to kind of help turn things around. And I can tell you, if we left it to that school board, those kids would have been locked out of school for a long time. So it's important. So we're doing that. And I think what's happened over the last couple of years is parents now realize that these are really significant elections. You know, the certain elections, a midterm, who's running for governor or senator, those are important, don't get me wrong, but these probably have a significant impact on families' lives in a way that some of these other offices may not be able to do. So it's important to be involved in that. And I know this group has done it, and I'll just say kind of the situation we find ourselves in. I think one of the differences between what's going on in our country now versus maybe 10 years ago is, the left fires on all cylinders across all these different institutions now in a way that they may not have done. A woke corporation 10 years ago was not something people really would have even fathomed at the time. But you look at how they've been able to advance a woke ideology in corporate America with the media, with big tech serving as the censorship arm, so that, you say, hey, the FDA's trial on the baby vax wasn't good, they will potentially take you down from that. They don't want anybody who's going to shed light on any of the problems with these narratives. And so you have that. Obviously, the universities, have been more and more aggressive in terms of their partnership. Although in Florida, I just signed legislation. All tenured professors in Florida have a mandatory 5-year review and can be let go if they're not doing a good job. But you have that. You have bureaucrats that have become very politicized and have tried to weaponize the bureaucracy. Who would have thought that parents going to a school board meeting would have to fear FBI agents being dispatched like they were earlier this year or last year. So there's I think a lot of threats to freedom. There's a lot of people that will push back if you stand up and do the right thing. And so when you have a situation like that where they don't want to hear the truth and you speak the truth, man, you're going to take fire. They're going to shoot arrows at you. And it's not just people like me who's a target because I'm in an office. It's parents who go to a school board. You go to that school board meeting and you speak the truth. Is the media going to hail you as a hero? No, they're going to try to smear you. They're going to try to dig into your background and do something and lie about you. If you're running for some of these local offices, they're going to come after you. If you're working in a business potentially, they could try to silence. So there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot of pushback against the truth right now. So what we need more than anything, we just need common sense, because a lot of this stuff is not rocket science. You need common sense, but what you need when you have a situation like this, you need some courage. You just got to be willing to stand by your convictions when it's not easy, when they come after you, and you know the drill. I mean, honestly, I tell people, like, when I have folks in that work for me, like our Surgeon General, I said, I didn't see what you did last week, but I saw you got attacked by NBC, so you must be doing a good job. So thank you. But it requires you be willing to stand your ground. It requires us to understand, now's not the time to be a shrinking violet. Now's not the time to let them grind you down. You've got to stand up and you've got to fight. But here's the thing. As much as this wokeism has gotten into all these institutions, and it is a mile wide in our society, it's only an inch deep. The people of this state, and I think the people around this country, they reject this nonsense. They know they're being lied to. And if you show them, whether you're just individually involved as a parent, whether you're running for office, whether you're involved in any other capacity, if you just show people that you're willing to fight for them, man, they will walk over broken glass barefoot to have your back. And so that's what we've seen in the state of Florida, because with everything that we've stood up against and all the incoming we've taken, every step of the way, we've had a reservoir of patriots throughout this state who were standing up, and they had my back, and they have all your backs. And so we have a great opportunity in this election in August with the primaries for the school board, and hopefully we win a lot then, and then into November with my election and all these other elections to really solidify the state of Florida as this country's citadel of freedom. You look around what's going on and you see Brandon blundering around in the White House. That energy policy that you see every time, you go get to fill up the gas and the grocery bills and all that. I mean, there's a lot to be pessimistic about, particularly in terms of Washington, D.C. But I can tell you this, in terms of Florida and the direction, I think back to the Constitutional Convention. During the convention, it was a tough convention. It almost failed multiple times. Finally, they come to an agreement, and as the delegates are signing the document, Benjamin Franklin stands up. He looks at the president's chair. George Washington was the president of the convention, not president of the United States yet. And Dr. Franklin said, and there was a kind of a sun, half of a sun on top of the chair. And Franklin said, throughout this whole time, I've been trying to rack my brain about whether that sun on the president's chair is a rising sun or a setting sun. And he said, well, with what we've accomplished today, I have more faith than ever that is a rising sun signifying the future for a great nation. I'll tell you this, in the state of Florida, in the Sunshine State, that sun is rising here because we're meeting